We're now going to progress to playing the swars on the saj. There's a few items of theory that you need to understand before we can progress. The first relates to the ascending and descending scale. So every tune, every dana, every reed that you learn will have an ascending scale, where the ascending scale physically moves down the instrument as you look at it, but in terms of pitch it's actually moving up a pitch. So it's ascending, it's going up the scale, it's climbing up the scale. Ascending. We have a number of names for that. In Indian, the most popular is Arohi, ascending. They also call it the Charda. Charda means climbing. So those are two words. We will use the word Arohi in all our lessons. And then there is the descending scale, which physically, as you look at the instrument, is actually coming back up the instrument, but in terms of the swars, the pitches, it is descending, it is climbing back down. That's the descending scale. And we call that the Avarohi, and Ustads, teachers, will also refer to it as the Lenda. Lenda means climbing down. We will always call it the Avarohi. Avarohi. So let me give you an example. Here is an ascending scale. That went up the scale, that's the Arohi, ascending, Charda, and then the descending, the Avrohi. Descending, came back down the swars. The next thing that we want you to understand is that there are 3 octaves ultimately that you will play on. Physically, as you look at the instrument, we have, I will introduce the swars to you in a little while. You'll understand what the name of each of these frets is. There's the middle octave. We call that Madhyam, the Madhyam scale. Then there is the Mandar scale, the lower octave. Mandar. And then finally there's the Tar scale, the upper octave. The whole of the first term is based on the Madhyam scale, the middle octave. The whole of this term will be based on this scale, and again, as I said a moment ago, we will introduce these swars to you in a little while, but we will not transcend into the Mandar scale, and we will not transcend into the Tar scale everything will be on the Madhyam scale. The placement of our hand on the instrument adopts a natural position. It's a very natural hand placement. There are 7 rules that you need to understand about the placement of our hand on the instrument. Rule number 1. This is my natural hand position. It's a very relaxed position. And that is the same hand position that I transpose onto the saj. It is a very natural hand position. We play very naturally. We don't scrunch our fingers up like this, bring our thumb in. We don't play like this with our hand stretched out, all our fingers stretched out. This is our natural position. Fingers are slightly curved. Thumb protrudes out very slightly. That is then the hand that we place onto the instrument. So the first rule on placing your hand on the instrument is that we adopt a natural hand position. Second rule is that what I want you to do is when you look at your instrument, I want you to look at the line of the frets. That is the same line that your fingers will adopt. They almost become an extension to the fret. We don't angle them like this. Now the fret's going like that and your fingers are going up there, and we don't angle them like this. Fret's going across there and fingers are going down there. Natural, follow the frets. So our fingers run parallel in a direct line from the frets. That was rule number 2. Rule number 3. Our finger always sits behind the fret. We always sit behind the fret. We don't sit on the cusp of the fret, and we don't place our finger after the fret. Always sit behind the fret. That then takes me to the next rule, rule number 4, which is that we play with this middle finger. 95% of the time you will play with your middle finger. Now and again, as I will show you a bit later on, we play with the first finger. In the first term, you will play with both. But mostly you will be playing with this middle finger. Every now and again you will introduce the first finger. Now let's put those 2 fingers onto any fret, not too fussed which one it is. And I want you to now go back to rule number 3, which said you place your finger just behind the fret. If you are looking at the instrument from underneath, you should be able to see almost half of the fret. If you can't, you've gone too far over. So rules 3 and 4, we bring them together. They are: put middle finger on instrument, hold just behind fret. Now we move on to the next rule, rule number 5, which is that the first finger always sits on the previous fret. So if your middle finger is on this fret here, let me identify that fret. If we count from the bridge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th fret along. If we put our middle finger on that fret, our first finger will be on fret number 6, because it's always on the previous fret. And we always follow that rule that this finger, the first finger, must also be sitting just behind the fret. Move on, let's go to the next fret along. Fret number 8. You will notice there's a gap between fret number 7 and fret number 8. Let's put our middle finger on fret number 8. And you will see, well, where do I now put my first finger? That's what you're thinking. Well, I want you to imagine that there's another fret between these two frets, and that is where your first finger will sit. Let's move forward a bit more. That was fret number 8. Let's go to fret number 10. Same rules apply. Middle finger just behind the fret. First finger on preceding fret, i.e. fret number 9. And both fingers to be sitting just behind the fret. Not on top and not past the fret. Now we move to what I call the 7mm rule. When you place, let's go back to fret number 7, okay? Remember bridge, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fret number 7, we're now going to place our finger on the string, and what you have to do is place the finger so that from the tip of the finger to the string there's roughly 7mm. Not too far in, I'm exaggerating it here, not too far out. This one now, there is around maybe 2mm, maybe 3, that's too far out. 7mm. And finally, in terms of our finger placement, keep your hands loose, okay? You can't play this instrument with stiff hands. Fingers have to be loose. What I always tell students in the early stages is, after you've played for maybe 5 minutes, just take your hand off, give it a good shake and put it back on. Relieve some of the stress, the tension in your hands, and you will develop some stress. Your fingers will become tense. You won't realize it because you've not played this before. This is the first time you're playing this instrument. You won't realize the amount of tension that will build up in your fingers. Just take your hand off, loosen your fingers, then put it back on really naturally. Be very comfortable.